Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. I'm reading The Wheel of Time for the first time and sharing the experience with you. This is One Good Turn, The Eye of the World, and today I am covering Chapter 4. It was the Gleeman. We pick up right after the last chapter left off with the man coming straight out of the inn in a huff. It's really interesting thus far. I've tried to articulate it before, how there can be such innocence and wholesomeness, but also that underlying threat of disturbance. There's something off. I know it, you know it, everyone around knows it, but no one's quite exploded yet. It's very tense. Egwene is excited to see the Gleeman. His eyes are blue, hinting at Rand's unique lineage. We get Rand stared at the man's eyes almost as much as at the rest of him. Everybody in the Two Rivers had dark eyes, and so did most of the merchants and their guards, and everyone else he had ever seen. The Congars and the Copelands had made fun of him for his gray eyes, until the day he finally punched Ewell Copeland in the nose. So Rand does not have the same colored eyes. There's definitely foreign blood in him. The Gleeman is upset. He did not appreciate having been so unceremoniously kicked out, obviously because the council are deep in talks about what to do over the recent news. But you add on top of that the unceremonious nature in which he was welcomed, having come so late into the evening. He's not having a good time. And it didn't help that Nynaeve apparently insulted the guy, which it seems like she does quite a lot. She's very combative. So he's complaining, and Rand tries to explain that Nynaeve is the wisdom, that they had just received unfortunate news. Interestingly, the Gleeman says that this is old news. So I'm trying to imagine what the ramifications of this being old news are. How much does any of it matter? If it's so old, then surely Two Rivers and Emond's Field don't have to worry so much, except for the fact that I know there is great concern to worry. But by the end of it, we get the sense that most of the adults don't think that there's any serious likelihood, supposedly. Again, I don't wholly trust the adults. They don't think that there's any serious likelihood of significant impact to them there at Two Rivers. The Gleeman had recognized Fane in the room with the councilman, and he sort of insults Fane, to which Egwene comes to his defense. He's always full of laughter, and he brings much more good news than bad. Egwene catches the Gleeman's eye. She asks him to be his assistant for his performance. He's a bit of a magician, it seems, among other things. And the important note there with how freely the Gleeman compliments Egwene's beauty is, "I always choose the prettiest girl I can find as my assistant." Perrin snickered, and Matt, who had been snickering, laughed out loud. Rand blinked in surprise. Egwene was glaring at him, and he had not even smiled. And I don't know what to make of that. She straightened around and spoke in a too calm voice. "Thank you, Master Gleeman. I would be happy to assist you." And there are so many layers there that I don't know how to articulate. Was Egwene surprised at Rand's reaction? Annoyed at Rand's reaction? All Rand did was blink. He was shocked. I think he was shocked by how freely someone was willing to compliment a girl he has a crush on. But I don't think Egwene likes Rand. She made it fairly clear in the last chapter. So I can't imagine Egwene would take his response of just pure shock as some sort of insult. If anything, I would think that Egwene would be upset that Perrin snickers. And Matt laughs out loud. And the snicker and the laugh came before Rand blinked, presumably roughly all at the same time. Nevertheless, those two were the more vocal. So I figured that's what Egwene would be upset about, not Rand blinking. Anyway, interesting moment. We get the name Tom Marilyn, or Thom Marilyn, and he explains a little bit of his history. He was a court bard risen to the rank of Master Gleeman. Now, it's noteworthy considering something that comes up slightly later, as at one point, he claims that he can make himself so heavy that not even Rand could lift him up, and he talks a little bit about some magic tricks, and I note the connection between his role as a magician and the name Marilyn, which sounds suspiciously like Merlin. I bring that up because later on we also get a Merlin-type name, which I'll get to when we get there. Matt is fishing for more information from him regarding what Fane had said about what's happening in Gildan, about the false dragon and the Aes Sedai, and the Gleeman grumbles that he's not a peddler. He's a Gleeman. He notes that he makes a point of never knowing anything about Aes Sedai. It's much safer that way. That's noteworthy for later as well, considering he seems very disconcerted to see Moraine, whom, at the very least, I know, is an Aes Sedai. Then he says something suspiciously profound. In wars, boy, fools kill other fools for foolish causes. That's enough for anyone to know. I am here for my art. And that's when he notes Rand and how big and strong he is. He also calls Perrin an Ogier, or rather that he has the size of one. And he says that later on he will challenge them to lift him up, and they'll be unable to do so. Matt goes in for it now, and I imagined it would have been funny because he's probably not in the appropriate setup. I assume this is sleight in hand magician stuff, not magical magic stuff. So naturally he has to insist upon waiting for that one. Again, a fun... Jordan's really good at writing these young boys as young boys. And so far, I think they're actually all very different and distinct personalities on top of that. He does a really good job of making Matt the sort of prankster, eager kind of character. He does a really good job of Perrin being the thoughtful one and Rand being the polite one, and the foot in his mouth one. Perrin seems to take it as a little bit of an insult to be compared to an Ogier, and refers to them as having just been made up. The Gleeman makes a comment regarding how well-traveled Perrin must be to so confidently say that Ogiers are made up. And this gets into an awkward interaction in which Perrin recounts the many places that they have visited, which is more than some in their local area, even arguably more than most in the local area, but is certainly not particularly well-traveled on a grander scale. And the Gleeman is insultingly playing along with it. At which point Egwene cuts in. It's bad luck to enter the mountains, Matt said, as if he had to defend himself for not going further. Everybody knows that. That's just foolishness, Matrim Cawthon, Egwene cut in angrily. Nynaeve says... She broke off, her cheeks turning pink, and the look she gave Tom Marilyn was not as friendly as it had been. It is not right to make... It isn't... Her face went redder and she fell silent. Matt blinked as if he was just getting a suspicion of what had been going on. You're right, child, the Gleeman said contritely. I apologize, humbly. I'm here to entertain. My tongue has always gotten me into trouble. If not for the fact that I am pretty darn confident that this town is about to be destroyed in the next day or two, I would almost be prepared to bet that Egwene is thinking about asking to travel with the Gleeman so that she could leave the town and the village and see the world. I'm pretty sure that isn't what happens, but it wouldn't surprise me if that thought entered her mind. At this point, as they're talking, some other folks enter onto the green. They know the Gleeman is there, and they're excited to see someone new. They're hoping he'll do a trick. And the Gleeman offers to do a sample, a bit of a showing, so they can go and tell the rest of the town. He starts talking about all kinds of stories. You want stories? I have stories, and I will give them to you. I will make them come alive before your eyes. And he starts juggling. Tales of great wars and great heroes for the men and boys, for the women and girls, the entire Apterigony cycle. Tales of Arthur Pendrag. That name I referenced earlier, so his name sounds suspiciously like Merlin. Here we've got Arthur Pendrag, which is suspiciously like Pendragon. I see what you're doing there. Wonderful homage. Tales of Arthur Pendrag Tenreal, Arthur Hawkwing, Arthur the High King, and so on and so forth. He gives a list of names, a list of places. The other one that stuck out to me, though, was How Susa Tamed Jane Farstrider. And I'm familiar with Jane Farstrider from the Ravens chapter, in which, if I recall correctly, she was Egwin's favorite book, or adventuress. So I remember being surprised. There was an expectation that Egwin would ask for a Jane Farstrider story. She instead says, "Tell us about Len, how he flew to the moon in the belly of an eagle made of fire. Tell about his daughter Salya walking among the stars." And obviously now I have to consider, why does she want that specific story? What is it about her in that story? What does that she asks about this story mean for what she wants? Tell about his daughter Salya walking among the stars. Aspirational, adventure. I'm sure there's more there that will be illuminated as I actually come to see her arc. Then we get some interesting thoughts from Rand on her taste in books, which I won't say run counter to the Ravens chapter, and obviously people's tastes change as they grow. Nevertheless, I felt it was noteworthy. Rand looked at her out of the corner of his eye, but she seemed intent on the gleeman. She had never liked stories about adventures and long journeys. Her favorites were always the funny ones, or stories about women outwitting people who were supposed to be smarter than everyone else. He was sure she had asked for tales about Len and Salya to put a burr under his shirt. Surely she could see the world outside was no place for Two Rivers folk. Listening to tales of adventures, even dreaming about them, was one thing. Having them take place around you would be something else again. So, clearly Rand does not want to be going out on any adventures. But it, again, in contrast to the Ravens chapter, makes me wonder how well Rand truly knows Egwin, and makes me wonder how much his opinion of Egwin is influenced more or less solely by the crush that he has on her. Tom Maryland calls those stories old, and he's continuing to juggle. He's adding balls, he's taking balls away, he's promising them many stories of all kinds. I'm thinking, how are you going to get through all those stories? And then he cuts himself off. He becomes distracted, almost like he's seen a ghost. Abruptly, the flow of words and the juggling alike stopped. Tom simply snatched the balls from the air and stopped talking. Unnoticed by Rand, Moraine had joined the listeners. Lan was at her shoulder, though he had to look twice to see the man. For a moment, Tom looked at Moraine sideways, his face and body still, except for making the balls disappear into his capacious coat sleeves. At that point, he says, "Your pardon, but you are surely not from this district." Ewan introduces her, and I don't know if this is Ewan putting his foot in his mouth or not. I don't know if Moraine would rather not be the center of attention right now or not, but I definitely got the sense either that these two knew each other, or I suppose more specifically that the Gleeman knows something about Moraine, more so than maybe knowing Moraine specifically. And naturally, I'm trying to pay attention to every word she says, detecting any hint of deception within the truth. They talk about stories, and the Gleeman is confident that he'll have a story she likes, and Moraine says, "That is a matter of taste, Master Bard. Some stories I like, and some I do not." Vague, naturally. Great way to say nothing while saying something. To which Tom responds, "I assure you none of my stories will displease. All will please and entertain, and you do me too much honor. I am a simple gleeman, that and nothing more." Again, I'm sensing this whole adversarial tone, this dangerous tone, rather, between the two. And then she takes off. And even Rand notices that Tom is not pleased. Tom stared after them, bushy brows drawn down, stroking his long mustaches with a knuckle until they were halfway up the green. He's not pleased at all, Rand thought. Then a bunch of people start calling for tricks from the Gleeman, and the council walks out of the inn with Nynaeve. Senbui is upset, calls the Gleeman a waste of money. The mayor says, "That man may be more trouble than he's worth." And Nynaeve, busy gathering her cloak around her, sniffed loudly. "Worry about the Gleeman if you want, Brendel Wyn Alfier. At least he is in Emond's Field, which is more than you can say for this false dragon. But as long as you are worrying, there are others here who should excite your worry." "If you please, Wisdom," Bran said stiffly, "kindly leave who should worry me to my deciding. Mistress Moraine and Master Lan are guests in my inn, and decent, respectable folk, so I say. Neither of them has called me a fool in front of the whole council. Neither of them has told the council it hasn't a full set of wits among them." "It seems my estimate was too high by half," Nynaeve retorted. She strode away without a backward glance, leaving Bran's jaw working as he searched for a reply. So Nynaeve just likes to pick fights. And look, maybe she's right. I don't know. I don't know Moraine or Lan. Nevertheless, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And Nynaeve is young, isn't she? The other thing to point out, though, is that whereas before we got the impression that Nynaeve is someone who will be mad for a moment and then let it go, here we see that she is still extremely distrustful of Moraine. And again, I think the council knows more or less everything. And to a point that almost gets confirmed later on in this chapter, but we'll get to that one. Then Egwin runs off to follow Nynaeve. Rand contemplates how he might be able to stop Egwin from leaving. He's not quite willing to marry her, although he thinks that would probably work. And he thinks that she made it perfectly clear that she's not interested. So that's a bummer for him. The more it becomes clear to me that the two have very different ideas for what they want out of life, the more I'm kind of thinking they probably shouldn't be together anyway. I'm kind of thinking Rand might end up with Nynaeve. I think there's going to be love triangle stuff going on, definitely. But I'm kind of feeling like the Rand Egwin of it probably isn't going to end well if it does happen at all. Master Luhan goes to try and comfort Sen, or rather talk sense into him or something to that effect, after having been yelled at by the mayor. And it's kind of shocking because I guess the mayor rarely, if ever, loses his temper, though it's, I imagine, not hard to with such combative people around during such a stressful time. We learn that Fane had more or less shared all the details that there was to share in that last chapter in which he gave his little performance. Basically, Tam explains he doesn't think the Aes Sedai are going to be coming anytime soon. He doesn't think that there'll be very many refugees or armies coming their way, but they are going to set up some patrols, which Matt and Perrin and Rand all seem to want to sign up for. It'll give them an opportunity to travel at least a little bit. Tam thinks it'll just be boring, but the others agree to talk to the mayor about it when they can. Day after tomorrow, we will send men to Devon Ride and Watch Hill and Terran Ferry too, to arrange for a watch to be kept. Riders along the White and the Terran both, and patrols between. It should be done today, but only the mayor agrees with me. The rest can't see asking anyone to spend Beltane off riding across the two rivers. Thing is, me assuming that the shit's gonna hit the fan sooner rather than later, even if they did send people tonight, I don't think it's gonna matter. I kinda expect something to either happen that night or at the festival the next day. That's my expected timeline. Then Tam says that he and Rand need to be getting back to their farm. Rand had thought that they would be staying in the village at the inn, presumably, but I guess that's not the case. Rand is a bit disappointed. Tam gives him about 5 minutes to chat with his friends while he gets the horse and then heads off to the stables. Rand takes the opportunity to bring back up the man in black. the coat that only they seemed to see, which I think is wise. It's an added layer of dangerousness that is present and happening. None of these things are happening in a vacuum. They all seem to be happening right at the same time. So why discount this one particular thing? Essentially, what happens is they want to go to the mayor that very night, but they decide that it would be more wise to ask others in the village if anyone else had seen it. They want to get as many people who had seen the thing, creature, cloaked man, to lend truth to the fact that they saw it. Again, Matt's reputation kind of hinders believability. But again, I'm also coming at it from the perspective of I think they already do believe them. They're just trying not to worry them, which I think it would be less worrisome to say, I hear you, it's concerning, and I'll talk to the others about it, more than just acting as if you don't believe them. You know what I mean? Particularly if you do, in fact, genuinely believe them. It seems wiser, because what does a person who sees something dangerous but no one believes do? Like, you could potentially become erratic in your effort, or be seen as behaving erratically in an effort to combat whatever danger it is that you perceive, right? So if I believed them, I would like to believe I would say something like, I believe you. I'll look into it as best I can. Keep an eye out if you see it again. I'm not sure. So the plan is to go to the mayor about it the next day. Rand goes off, he goes to the stables, and he sort of feels as if he can match each horse to its master, and it goes through it. He knows which horse belongs to Lan, he knows which horse belongs to Moraine, and so on. And that was a neat little segment. We get a very important conversation, I think, between Tam and Rand. Father, I don't understand why the council had to question Padden Fane. It seems to me the decision you reached could have been made right on the spot. The mayor frightened everybody half out of their wits talking about Aes Sedai and the false dragon here in the Two Rivers. People are funny, Rand. The best of them are. Take Harl Luhan. Master Luhan is a strong man and a brave one, but he can't bear to see butchering done. Turns pale as a sheet. What does that have to do with anything? Everybody knows Master Luhan can't stand the sight of blood, and nobody but the Copelands and the Congars think anything of it. Just this, lad. People don't always think or behave the way you might believe they would. Those folk back there. Let the hail beat their crops into the mud and the wind, take off every roof in the district, and the wolves kill half their livestock, and they'll roll up their sleeves and start from scratch. They'll grumble, but they won't waste any time with it. But you give them just the thought of Aes Sedai and a false dragon in Galdon, and soon enough they'll start thinking that Galdon is not that far the other side from the Forest of Shadows, and a straight line from Tar Valon to Galdon wouldn't pass that much to the east of us. As if the Aes Sedai wouldn't take the road through Caemlyn and Lugard instead of traveling cross-country. By tomorrow morning half the village would have been sure the entire war was about to descend on us. It would take weeks to undo. A fine Beltane that would make. So Bran gave them the idea before they could get it for themselves. So a little bit of crowd control, if you will. I think that's perhaps the nicest way to put it. Yes, what information a person receives is important, but also how that information is received is important. And a populace in a panic can do more harm to themselves than good. And if the adults truly believe that the situation is not terribly dire, and I'm not sure I believe that to be the case, meaning I don't think they believe it's not that dire, but I can understand it. They've seen the council take the problem under consideration, and by now they'll be hearing what we decided. They chose us for the village council because they trust we can reason things out in the best way for everybody. They trust our opinions, even Sen's, which doesn't say much for the rest of us, I suppose. At any rate, they will hear there isn't anything to worry about, and they'll believe it. It is not that they couldn't reach the same conclusion, or would not, eventually, but this way we won't have Festival ruined, and nobody has to spend weeks worrying about something that isn't likely to happen. If it does, against all odds, well, the patrols will give us enough warning to do what we can. I truly don't think it'll come to that, though. This feels like an important paragraph. Tam is coming off to me very much as a wise mentor, as a caring father, as a reasonably decent leader. I imagine someone could try to make an argument that this is a manipulative decision or a dishonest one in some way. I'm not so sure because the information is still getting out there. It's just coming from the authority of the council, and it's not like they're ignoring it. They've just put it off for a moment. They have valued the danger as not being imminent, but do intend to take action. But then, the big surprise of the chapter, Tam says, "Did anyone besides Perrin see this stranger? Matt did, but..." Rand blinked, then stared across Bella's back at his father. "You believe me? I have to go back. I have to tell them." And he turns around, but Tam, stops him. In fact, he says he specifically waited to bring it up until they had made it far enough away that Rand couldn't just run back. "What made you change your mind? Why can't I tell the others?" "They'll know soon enough. At least Perrin will. Matt, I'm not sure of. Word must be gotten to the farms as best it can, but in another hour there won't be anyone in Emmons Field above 16, those who can be responsible about it at least, who doesn't know a stranger is skulking around and likely not the sort you would invite to festival. The winter has been bad enough without this to scare the young ones." That line, "Word must be gotten to the farms as best it can, but in another hour there won't be anyone in Emmons Field above 16, those who can be responsible about it at least, who doesn't know a stranger is skulking around and likely not the sort you would invite to festival." Whew. Was a bit much for me. I wonder if Jordan could have broken that up just a little bit to make it a bit more comprehensible. It was one of those lines that comes up every so often where it was like, wait, what did I just read? I should be able to understand this. What does this mean? And then I actually have to understand it, which I do now, naturally. Those who are responsible for taking precautions will have heard of the potential danger and can take said precautions, is what that is saying. Word will get out. The thing is, Tam seems to be under the impression that it's just some thief or innocuous refugee, potentially dangerous, but not supernatural. And I think it's supernatural. We don't know specifically what Tam knows about the cloak not moving with the wind. Rand had kept that to himself, and we don't know if Perrin mentioned it to anyone else. So I do think it's more dangerous than just your common thief or refugee. We learn that there are others who saw it. Only young men see this fellow, it seems. When Harl Luhan mentioned Perrin jumping at shadows, though, it all came out. John Thane's oldest son saw him too, and so did Sam L. Craw's boy, Bandry. Well, when 4 of you say you've seen a thing, and solid lads all, we start thinking maybe it's there whether we can see it or not. All except Sen, of course. So that's 2 more to add to the list, I think, of potential dragons reborn. Though I don't know how big the party, the D&D party, ends up being. I really don't. I think, from what I've heard, when the shit hits the fan, Moraine, Lan, Rand, Perrin, Egwin, Nynaeve, I'm feeling like Matt's going to be there now as well, though I don't recall having heard about Matt. I don't recall hearing any others, not that I can think of, so maybe these other 2 aren't on the list of possibilities. Anyway, the 2 continue on their way back to the farm, and for the first time pretty much all day, Rand feels much better now, having heard that his dad believes him. He was surprised to realize that his step felt lighter. The knots were gone from his shoulders. He was still scared, but it was not so bad as it had been. Tam and he were just as alone on the quarry road as they had been that morning, but in some way he felt as if the entire village were with them. That others knew and believed made all the difference. There was nothing the black-cloaked horsemen could do that the people of Emmons Field could not handle together. Excellent passage. Also very wrong, because shit's gonna hit the fan soon. But strong end to the chapter. I think that's all I got for now. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Okay, thanks, bye.